Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the crustacean family. Based on our source material, we're going to look closely at how these animals are built from the perspective of intelligent design. Specifically, a creator purposefully engineering life to survive and thrive. From the deep, vibrant blue of the ocean all the way to the damp soil right in your own backyard, this is a master blueprint of survival. To do that, we'll quickly map out their basic blueprint, check out some of their wildly specialized survival gear, look at an ancient health warning, explore some really unique custom models, and finally end up looking at nature's built-in cleanup crew. All right, let's kick things off by looking right under the hood at their basic structural framework. They belong to this massive family tree called the phylum Arthropoda. You know, invertebrates with jointed appendages, distinct segmented bodies, and a tough exoskeleton made of a protein called chitin. So they actually share a base design with insects and spiders, but as we'll see, crustaceans get a pretty massive upgrade. Our source points out a really cool structural distinction here between insects and crustaceans. While an insect has three main body regions, head, thorax, and abdomen, and breathes air, crustaceans are built for an entirely different world. They generally only have two body regions, they breathe using specialized gills, and get this, their shells aren't just chitin. They are heavily armored, hardened by calcium carbonate. That is literally the exact same substance that makes up limestone. And this brings us to a defining feature, the cephalothorax. Make sure you note the spelling of that one, because this unique two-part body system is the absolute hallmark of the crustacean blueprint. It's a combined head and chest area, completely shielded by a heavy armor-plated shell known as a carapace. It's essentially a built-in biological tank designed specifically to protect their vital organs. Okay, so how does this base framework translate into actual functioning survival gear? Well, first of all, the sheer scalability of this design is unreal. I mean, the smallest crustaceans are microscopic, just a fraction of a millimeter long. But then you have the Japanese spider crab, which boasts an engineered leg span of up to 4 meters. That's 13 feet across. It just proves how incredibly well this segmented, armored blueprint scales up to fit totally different ecological needs. Let's zoom in on the decapods for a second. Deca means 10, and pod means foot. So we're talking about your classic 10-footed creatures like crabs, lobsters, and shrimp. The source highlights how every single part of them is packed with highly purposeful tools. They've got compound eyes mounted on flexible stalks so they can look in multiple directions without moving. They have jaw feet called maxillipeds, just for holding food. And, my personal favorite feature, they have secondary jaws called maxilla that actually double as water pumps. They literally pump water over their gills so they can keep breathing. Add in those massive front claws, the shelly, for defense, and you've got a perfectly engineered machine. But what happens if that defense fails? If a predator grabs a crab by the claw, the crab can literally detach its own arm, leave it behind as a distraction, and just scurry away. And because of how they grow by periodically shedding their exoskeleton, a process called molting, they will just regenerate a brand new claw, growing it back a little larger each time they molt. It is an absolutely brilliant built-in escape hatch. Now, despite all that cool armor and those amazing defenses, our source points out there is a very specific reason you might want to be careful around them. Thousands of years before the invention of microscopes or modern toxicology, the book of Leviticus recorded a very specific dietary law for the Israelites. They were told not to eat anything in the seas that lacked fins and scales, so that directly prohibited eating crustaceans like crabs, lobsters, and shrimp. But why? Well, it all comes down to their designed purpose. See, crustaceans are primarily scavengers. A hungry decapod doesn't really care if its food is living or dead. They eat decaying plants and animals. Because of this, their bodies can hold on to harmful toxins, bacteria, and heavy metals. Eating them can cause severe intestinal problems, paralysis, or even death. So the source views this ancient rule as a remarkably wise manufacturer's warning, meant to protect people from creatures specifically designed to be the ocean's bottom-feeding waste removal system. All right, let's step away from the classic crabs and lobsters and check out some of the more bizarre, customized specialty models in this family. You've probably heard of brine shrimp. Maybe you've even hatched them from cysts for a science experiment. But I want you to look closely at their design and ask yourself if they really belong with the decapods we just talked about. Are they true shrimp? The answer is a resounding no. While true shrimp are decapods with exactly 10 legs, the brine shrimp has 22. Furthermore, it completely lacks that heavy armor plating, the carapace. But that's incredibly intentional. This unique design allows them to thrive in extremely salty waters where heavy armor just isn't needed, mostly because predators simply can't survive the high salt concentration. Brine shrimp, along with those little transparent water fleas, actually belong to a completely different group, the branchiopods. That name literally translates to gill feet. I love this. Their design is so highly customized that they breathe using flattened, leaf-like extensions right on their legs. Literally every time they kick to swim or eat, they are also breathing. How cool is that? Oh, and we definitely can't forget the tiny copepods. Most of these guys are no larger than 5 millimeters. They're sometimes called one-eyed wonders, and for a very good reason. They are named after the mythical Cyclops giant because they have a single, simple eye placed right on the very top of their heads. It's a perfectly functional, simplified optical system for a microscopic swimmer. Now, talk about intentional design. Check out the barnacle's life cycle. A lot of people think barnacles are just rocks or dead shells, but they are absolutely living crustaceans. A barnacle starts as a free-swimming larva, but to become an adult, it literally glues its own head to a solid surface, like a pier or a rock. It then secretes its own little limestone house around itself and spends the rest of its life kicking its tiny legs out of the shell to sweep food particles right into its mouth. It's an incredibly unique, stationary survival strategy. Even the microscopic plankton have some spectacular features. Consider krill. Structurally, they look like decapods, but they have more than 10 legs. What's truly amazing is their order name, Euphosacea, which means shining bright. And that's because they have stunning built-in bioluminescence. They actually glow in the dark. They swarm in such massive, unimaginable numbers that they can literally turn the Antarctic waters brick red. And their entire ecological purpose is to be the foundational food source that feeds the massive baleen whales of the ocean. Okay, for our final structural blueprint, we're going to leave the vast ocean entirely and look under a damp, rotting log right in your own backyard. You've definitely played with pill bugs, right? Roly-polies, woodlice, whatever you call them. Did you know they are technically crustaceans? They belong to a group called isopods, which means equal feet, because all their legs look pretty much the same. But here is the wildest part. Even though they live completely on land, they still beautifully retain their crustacean gills. That is exactly why you only ever find them living under damp leaf piles or wet, rotting logs. They literally need that moisture to breathe. These little guys act as nature's janitors by happily feeding on dead and decaying vegetation and rolling into tightly armored little balls whenever they feel threatened. They perfectly fulfill their designed role. Our source describes them as a crucial part of God's natural cleanup crew, quietly breaking things down and recycling nutrients back into the soil so new plants can grow. So think about what we've covered today. We've seen heavy calcium-plated armor. We've seen regenerating claws, legs that double as lungs, and microscopic creatures that glow in the dark to feed whales. When you step back and look at all these highly specific, perfectly functioning systems working together for survival across so many different environments, what does the sheer complexity of the crustacean blueprint reveal to the author about the mind of a creator? The source truly leaves you marveling at the sheer genius behind the design. I hope this explainer gave you a whole new appreciation for these armored wonders. Thanks for hanging out and learning with me, and stay curious.